Cowabunga! What do you do after your franchise's first major motion picture breaks box office records and helps push it into the billion-dollar stratosphere? Rush a sequel, of course. And we mean rush. Out just under a year after its predecessor, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze was fast-tracked into production. At a cost. The movie featured a recycled villain, missed opportunities to showcase fan favorites, and a story that never made good on the promise in the title. On top of that, producers had to cater to censors and address nationwide concerns over excessive turtle violence. Dig yourself out of the sewer, slice up your favorite pizza, anchovies or not, it's your call, and go ninja go as we explore the secret of the ooze and find out what the f*** happened to this movie. When it was released from the sewers in the spring of 1990, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was an immediate smash hit, grossing $202 million on a $13.5 million budget. It became the fourth highest grossing movie of the year, behind only Home Alone, Pretty Woman, and Ghost. Distributed by New Line Cinema, it was also the highest grossing independent film ever, and held that title until Blair Witch Project. So there's a movie connection you didn't see coming. It's no wonder. The property, which began as a comic book, was hot, with a popular cartoon series and a line of Playmates toys that were a billion-dollar asset, sitting near toy chest staples like G.I. Joe. It's no surprise there would be a sequel. New Line Cinema again paired with Golden Harvest, the Hong Kong studio best known for martial arts flicks like Game of Death and Enter the Dragon. The studio went hyperdrive to capitalize, releasing The Secret of the Ooze just under 1 year after its predecessor. The script, according to producer Tom Gray, was, quote, cobbled together, and the whole production, quote, rushed. Once the first film opened, we figured we had to get another one out as quickly as possible, before this whole thing could fade away very quickly if we didn't come back. The plot picks up right after the events of the first movie, with the titular turtles, Botticelli, Caravaggio, Bellini, and Brunelleschi, we mean Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael, shacking up with news reporter April O'Neil while they lay low, having witnessed master villain Shredder fall from a roof and get crushed in a garbage truck by a former hockey player. The Turtles also learn more about the toxic mutagen that resulted in their mutation and somehow their ninja skills. The so-called Ooze was created by Techno Global Research Industries, but there's not much of a secret to it, as the title suggests. The secret itself was supposed to set up another film, but this was ultimately nixed. The original ending had Professor Perry revealed to be an Utrom, the dominant alien species of the series. Before the credits, it would be revealed he had an alien in his stomach, a la Krang. Speaking of Krang, don't expect to see him in the movie, despite immense popularity on the animated series. The main villain would be Shredder, who was supposedly killed off in the first TMNT. Franchise creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird also didn't want Shredder to return since they had developed a rogues gallery of sorts. Fans would have loved Krang, or scientist/Fly Baxter and his robotic Mouser minions, a first choice for Eastman and Laird. But the idea was to keep it as simple as possible for the sequel, hence reusing Shredder. So that was a recycling truck he fell into. The Secret of the Ooze would be populated by returning cast members and first-timers. Francois Cho replaced James Seitel as Shredder, while David McCharron returned to voice him. Super Shredder, created after taking a sip of that green drink, would be played by pro wrestling legend Kevin Nash, on the cusp of a major WWF/WWE breakout, but still then wrestling as Oz, one of the stupidest gimmicks in wrestling history. What, the Shockmaster wasn't available? April O'Neil was also replaced, with Paige Turco taking over for Judith Hogue. Hogue was reportedly difficult on the set of the original and openly objected to the 6-day workweek and violence, both on-screen and behind the scenes, citing multiple injured stuntmen, something she responsibly brought to producers. Perhaps worst of all, quote, "They gave me this really horrible perm and it never cooperated." David Warner would play Professor Jordan Perry, basically a Baxter stand-in, while Ernie Reyes Jr. would play Pizza Boy Kino, promoted from being a Donatello stunt double in the original. And let's not forget Vanilla Ice in a shoehorned cameo and dance number. His inclusion was not trouble-free, as bodyguard Sir Mr. Rob Van Winkle got into a kerfuffle with one of the turtles. No shells or high-top fades were harmed in the process. Speaking of the Turtles, voicing the Turtles, that is, those not forced to wear 70-pound costumes that also rendered them blind, would be Brian Tochi, reprising his turn as Leonardo. Michelangelo would be voiced by Robbie Rist, once the target of vehement disdain for playing Cousin Oliver on the Brady Bunch. Lori Fassa as Raphael. Donatello would be voiced by Adam Carl, replacing Corey Feldman, who was too busy being Corey Feldman. And by that we mean he was dealing with a drug possession charge and entering rehab. He would return for TMNT 3. One last key returning cast member would be Kevin Clash, perhaps better known as the voice and puppeteer of Elmo, playing Master Splinter. Suspiciously absent was fan favorite Casey Jones, Elias Koteas in the first movie, sent to the penalty box, with rumors suggesting he was too violent. You know, because hockey players are expected to be a tranquil bunch. The mask was also deemed a little too Jason Voorhees. Hey, maybe New Line didn't want audiences thinking they were ditching Freddy. Curiously, Casey Jones does turn up in the next installment, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, albeit without his trademark mask. Other than Shredder/Super Shredder, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would be facing off against the classic characters Bebop and Rocksteady. Oh, you wish. Creators Eastman and Laird refused to let the bumbling mutant warthog rhino duo in the movie. According to Laird, quote, "It is true that I didn't want any of them in the movies, which is why instead of Bebop and Rocksteady in the second movie, there were Tokka and Razar." If memory serves, Kevin was equally opposed to the inclusion of Bebop and Rocksteady in the movies. It's not so much that I dislike the characters so intensely, but more that I found their constant one-note shtick in the first animated series to be extremely annoying and silly to the point of being stupid. So, ditching stupid altogether, fans got a mutated alligator snapping turtle and a gray wolf, both voiced by legendary voice actor Frank Welker, better known as Megatron and Fred from Scooby-Doo. Tokka and Razar would at least make for cool toys, which actually was one of the key reasons producer Gray wanted new characters. Fresh merch. Calling it strictly a, quote, business decision. Tokka and Razar are rightfully hideous, but it almost seems unintentional, since they were essentially made of spare parts from Jim Henson's Creature Shop, who also handled the animatronics on the first movie. In tribute, The Secret of the Ooze opens with In Memory of Jim Henson, who died 2 months after the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Still, for stitched together inclusions, Tokka and Razar are decent enough choices for minor baddies, considering we could have gotten Antrax, Ground Chuck, and Worm. Sergeant Bananas would have been badass though. The Secret of the Ooze would be directed by Michael Pressman, at that point directing TV movies, and who had had low-level fare like the Bad News Bears and Breaking Training and the Dan Aykroyd vehicle Dr. Detroit to his theatrical credits. He was chosen by producer Gray because of his quick turnaround. Between 1983 and 1990, he had directed 13 TV movies. Pressman replaced Steve Barron, who would next direct Coneheads. Hey, more Dan Aykroyd. One more and you get a free bottle of Crystal Head vodka. One of the biggest changes that had to be made for The Secret of the Ooze was to tone down the violence. At the time, the Turtles were facing some criticism for their use of combat, with a movement limiting the Turtles' kung fu grip on kids. Reportedly, some schools were outright banning the characters. The National Association for the Education of Young Children also expressed concern. Quote, "The way the Ninja Turtles work out their difficulties is by socking each other and knocking each other. What are they supposed to do, talk it out with the Foot Clan?" Ultimately, the movie suffered for it. We didn't expect Donatello to impale foot soldiers a la Cannibal Holocaust, but he should at least be able to jab a head or two. Filming on The Secret of the Ooze began on October 1st, 1990, just 6 months after the release of the first Ninja Turtles, with a reported $25 million budget, although Gray puts it closer to $16.5. Production wrapped in early December, and on March 22nd, 1991, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze was out in theaters, just under 1 year after the first one. An incredibly short turnaround, something New Line had perfected with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Like its predecessor, Secret of the Ooze debuted at number 1, but instead of nudging Pretty Woman from the top spot, it pushed out eventual Best Picture winner The Silence of the Lambs after 5 weeks of reigning. Released in over 3,000 screens, a reported record at the time, the movie went on to gross $78.6 million. Paltry compared to the original, but still a profit for New Line and Golden Harvest. But the real money would be in the merchandising. And we're not just talking about the soundtrack. complete with Vanilla Ice classic Ninja Rap, with its catchy chorus. That's right, toys. In the mid-Turtle Mania year of 1991, the franchise had 8 video games released and nearly 60 new figures, vehicles, sets, and toys, doubling 1990's output. And the following year, there were over 100. The Turtles would have movie star editions, sports editions, music editions, talking editions, and on and on and on. There too were food products, like Nabisco's Royal Gelatin brand's Ooze desserts. Food tie-ins were nothing new for the Turtles, with a popular cereal with marshmallow turtles and weapons, and ice cream truck exclusive bars with bubblegum eyeballs. And while the action figures and sweets were well received, the movie had its share of critics. Much of it went back to the violence and language, which apparently they didn't cut out enough of, at least in the United Kingdom. Censorship across the pond of the Turtles went back to the cartoon, even changing the word bummer, as in, that's a bummer, dude, because it could be linked to homosexual slang. Should we tell them there's a porn star named April O'Neil? Keep in mind, this is the same country that insisted on a name change to Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. With the release of Secret of the Ooze set for August 1991, the British Board of Film Classification stepped in. Their main concern? Nunchucks.
Oh, a fellow chucker, eh?
Also known as chain sticks, and sausage links. From their official report, quote, in the credit sequence in Reel 1, chain sticks are wielded, or seem to be, after a shot of sausages hanging from the butcher's rail. Since there is real confusion between chain sticks and sausages, this sequence needs to be carefully checked before cuts, if any, are listed. Ditto a sequence in Reel 2, where April tries out a pair of chain sticks. Could they be sausages? If so, we would look pretty foolish, right Charlie's in fact, if we cut them. The BBFC had such a serious concern that sausages would resemble nunchucks, quote, to any streetwise 8-year-old, that they made this official request. Quote, after Turtle takes down sausages and uses them as a flail, reduced to minimize dazzling display of swinging sausages indistinguishable from chain sticks. In other words, no playing with your sausage, kids. Their gripes held until 2002, when they finally re-rated the movie. Even Roger Ebert questioned the violence, despite the Turtles barely even using their famous weapons. His partner, Gene Siskel, also gave the movie 1 star, calling it, quote, depressing. He might actually be onto something here. Consider Donatello's existential crisis partway through the film, when he ponders the meaning of his existence and the greater purpose of life. There's just got to be more to it, he says. Is Donatello merely a turtle? What is a turtle? What does being a turtle mean in the grand scheme? Why did they have to make a third Ninja Turtles movie?